Hello, I'm Katie Nickel, and I am an educator at the Ringling Museum. Today, we are going to take a virtual tour through some of our artworks in the museum. On today's tour, we will be looking at 4 works of art that introduce you to the Ringling. We'll look at European paintings and sculpture, Asian sculpture, and a contemporary painting, which means it was created recently. I'm excited to introduce you to the Ringling, so come on, let's get started. Today, you will be learning about museums and why they collect works of art. We will be comparing art made all over the world and from very different times. You can pause this video at any time to talk about the works of art or write down your observations. You may want to keep an art journal as we go on the tour, so you can write down or sketch your thoughts about what we will discover. Welcome to the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art. Through these doors lies a world of art and culture, celebrating great things humans have done from all over the world. Museums collect objects and use those objects to teach us about the world and to help us understand ourselves. This museum collects art, which can show us the beauty of the world and the people who live in it. Museums are great sources of inspiration, motivating us when we are tired and sparking our curiosity. Let's head inside and see what curious and inspiring things we can discover. The first thing you see when you walk inside the Museum of Art is the stunning courtyard. John Ringling, the man who built this museum, wanted the museum to be a beautiful place of inspiration. The lush green courtyard is an excellent place to start our visit. This courtyard is surrounded by pink arches and columns made to look like an Italian palace. The courtyard is filled with bronze sculptures of people in different poses and doing different activities. There are also sculptures of animals like deer and several fountains. At the far end of the courtyard is a massive sculpture of a man named David. David is a character from a story in the Bible. He was only a boy, but volunteered to fight the giant Goliath and save his family and home from war and invasion. The king offered David his sword and armor, but David refused. Instead, David gathered stones from the river and used a slingshot to bring down the mighty giant. This story tells of David's bravery and courage as he stands up for his family and friends. You've probably noticed by now, but David isn't wearing any clothes. Instead, he is leaning on one leg with his slingshot over one shoulder and his rock in the other hand. David was made in Italy during a period known as the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, artists often showed people nude or naked to show off their skill of copying the entire human body. For artists like Michelangelo, who made the original David, showing the nude human body was showing people at their most powerful and closest to God. The story of David is a story of courage and bravery in the face of danger. Remember, you can pause the video after each question to talk with your family or friends about your answers. This is where your art journal could come in handy, so you can write down your answers before we move on. Can you think of a time when you needed to be brave? What did it feel like? How do you think David feels in this situation? I can remember a time when my best friend was being picked on in school. After talking about the problem with my friend, I decided that I would stand up for her when she was getting bullied. I felt scared and nervous and like my stomach would fall straight through me, but when I finally stood up for what was right, I felt relieved and calm. When I look at David, I am reminded of that moment of calmness that follows bravery. What feelings have you had in a tough situation where you needed to be brave? David is standing in a relaxed posture with his weight on one foot and twisting his body forward. Can you imitate David's pose? Come on, let's stand up and try to copy his position. What do you think David was doing right before this pose? What is he going to do next? When I stand like David, I feel powerful but calm. To me, it feels like he is about to walk forward after a short rest. I don't think David has fought his battle yet. When I stand like this and look out into the distance like David is doing, it makes me feel like I am surveying the battleground for danger, and I'm about to walk purposefully into that battle. A visit to the Ringling is not complete until we visit the Rubens Galleries. A gallery is a room in a museum that holds artworks around a specific theme. The theme for these galleries is to focus on the extremely large size of the paintings by the artist Peter Paul Rubens. The artist lived a long time ago and made these giant paintings around 1625. That's almost 400 years ago. When John Ringling first made this museum, he wanted these galleries to make people go, ooh, ah. What is your first reaction when you saw these galleries today? The galleries are very tall and showcase a series of paintings by Peter Paul Rubens called The Triumph of the Eucharist, and they show some stories from the Bible. John Ringling didn't stop with the oohs and the ahs. He wanted these galleries to match the paintings. The columns, the designs on the wall, and even the wall color all match what's happening inside the paintings. It's almost like being inside the painting itself. In fact, let's focus on one of the paintings and imagine ourselves visiting that scene. This painting is called The Gathering of the Manna. Let's see if we can act out the story by imagining ourselves in the painting. You can get up and move around as we pretend to visit the story. Or you can lounge and use your imagination to move around the painting inside your mind. When we first step in, it's hard to know where to stand. There are so many people here in the foreground, or the area of the painting that is closest to us. As I look around, I'm breathing in the sights and the smells of the scene. I see people who are carrying baskets and they're gathering something. It looks like there are seeds or something falling from the sky, and the people are gathering it all up. We know that the title of this painting is called The Gathering of the Manna. So the stuff that the people are gathering, it must be called manna. Manna is a special food from heaven. Moses and his people were starving in the wilderness, and Moses asked God to save them. We see Moses here in red asking God to help. And the people are collecting this manna for their next meal. Come on, let's join the people in gathering manna. Does everyone have their basket? I'm imagining that I'm holding my basket on my head, like the woman wearing yellow. But I'm finding it really difficult to gather enough manna with this small child tugging on my arm the whole time. One line that I might give to this woman to help her out a little bit might be, hey, why don't you help this man gathering manna on the ground? That way you can collect your own basket. What line might you give her? Let's keep looking around this landscape. What do you smell? I smell the sound of rain rolling in after a long day in the sun. I'm noticing that because right above us in the sky are thunder clouds rolling in. What do you think the baskets smell like? What about manna? What does that smell like to you? What does manna feel like? What does manna feel like as it falls on your head? Why don't you gently tap the top of your head with your fingertips and imagine the manna raining down from heaven? Feels like a gentle rain to me. What about the clothes that we're wearing? What do they feel like? What do you think manna tastes like? Let's try it together. Better have some more. I think manna tastes like bread, but I think it also has an earthy feel. I mean, it is falling from the sky after all. What about you? What do you think Manna tastes like? Phew, that was busy pretending. There's so much going on in the painting. I almost forgot we're supposed to be figuring out the story. While exploring the painting, we learned that the people are gathering manna, which is falling from the sky. The man in red, Moses, is reaching up towards the sky as if to call down the manna or to give thanks. Moses is thanking his God for the gift of manna to help his people survive in the wilderness. Try pausing the video now and use your art journal to try writing your own story and then illustrating it. Then pretend to walk into your illustration to figure out more of the story behind the 4 squares. Now we're going to travel to a different part of the museum to take us even further back in time. This time, we're traveling to the ancient region of Gandhara. Today, Gandhara no longer exists. If you looked on a map, you can find Gandhara where Pakistan is today. Although Gandhara exists only in history, we can learn a lot about the people who lived there by looking at the art they made. This sculpture is of Buddha. Buddha was a spiritual teacher from India who taught a message of peace and enlightenment, or a way of knowing. Buddha's teachings started a new religion called Buddhism over 2,000 years ago. This Buddha isn't quite as old. It was made in the 3rd or 4th century, so about 1,700 years ago. Buddha is sitting in the lotus position, with crossed legs and his hands placed gently in his lap. Can you try to sit like the Buddha? This feels familiar to me. We still sit cross-legged when we are sitting on the floor and paying attention to something. Imagine wearing the clothes Buddha has on. What do they feel like as you run your fingers over the folds and the creases? What do you think his clothes are made of? Although we don't know who made this sculpture, we can still see how detailed and beautiful the carving is. What are you thinking about as you observe the artist's work? Let's compare this sculpture to the painting we imagined ourselves in earlier by Peter Paul Rubens. Both are religious works of art. One is Buddhist and the other is Christian. How are these works of art different? List 3 differences. Some differences I notice is one work of art is a painting, while the other is a stone sculpture. The painting has lots of people in it, but the man in the sculpture is alone. I also notice the people in the painting are busy working, gathering up the manna, while the man in the sculpture is quietly meditating. What else can you find? How are these 2 works of art similar? Can you find 3 similarities? Both of these works show people, so they have that in common. I also think these people are important in their own religions. Moses, the Israelites, and Buddha are all important characters. Both artists seem to pay close attention to clothing. The painting is full of vibrant colors and deep folds and creases. And while the Buddha is only one gray color, the folds and the creases are just as lifelike. Now let's travel forward in time to the 1970s. This painting is by an artist named Grace Hartigan, and it's called Holidays. At first glance, the shapes and colors appear to be a little bit confusing, and at first they don't look like objects from real life. But the more patient we are and the longer we look at this painting, the shapes gradually become familiar. Grace Hartigan was an abstract artist, meaning she didn't try to paint things exactly the way they appear in real life. Instead, she used her imagination, emotion, and memory to capture the life around her. She was inspired by window displays of various shops, street scenes, and life in New York City. Grace Hartigan chose to call this painting Holidays, but we don't know exactly which holiday she meant. She may have meant a single holiday, like Valentine's Day or Christmas or Passover, but she could also have meant that she was going on holiday or going on vacation. Either way, Grace Hardigan is using her memories to help her make this painting. The longer I look at this complicated work of art, the more I begin to think about how our memory works. Sometimes it requires greater concentration and more effort to recall events and images from our past. The longer time goes on, the more jumbled together things get in my memories, like pieces of a puzzle. Some of the things in this painting we can recognize. What do you see? I see a butterfly, flowers, hearts, and maybe even a cantaloupe. Abstract art is fun to look at with a group of people because everyone uses their own imagination when they look at abstract art, so we all see something different. Compare the different things you see with what people around you are seeing. This painting is all about the artist's memories of holidays. What is your favorite holiday? If you were to create a painting like this one based on your favorite holidays or vacations, what objects would you include? And what colors would you choose? Today, we looked at the museum building and the courtyard in the center. In the courtyard, we saw a sculpture of David standing guard over the museum. We thought about what it would be like to show bravery and how David may have felt before his big battle. We talked about larger-than-life paintings by Peter Paul Rubens and imagined ourselves joining the crowd as we gathered Manna. We traveled to the ancient region of Gandhara and learned about Buddha and the artwork the Gandhara artists made. Finally, we traveled back from history to look at a painting done recently by Grace Hardigan, and we imagined what our memories would look like if we painted them in an abstract way. Thank you for joining me on this tour today. I had a great time introducing you to my favorite museum, the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art. I hope to see you all back soon.